Hello, everybody. Welcome to Becker Vineyards virtual tasting again. Tonight, we're going to be discussing our 2017 Cinsaut. This recently won a silver medal at the San Francisco International Wine Competition, so we're really excited to get started on this one. Tonight, we have Dr. Richard Becker again. We also have Jon Leahy, our winemaker, and as a special treat, we've decided to throw in our assistant winemaker and enologist, Rachel Fanning, and she'll be taking my spot here in just a minute. So I'm going to turn it over to everybody else. We'll get you guys started on your tasting. Enjoy, everyone. Cheers.
Cheers, Doc.
Cheers, John.
And welcome, Rachel, to our broadcast. Thank you for joining us. So, Doc, would you lead us off with a little intro?
Well, just another week in our great terrible calamity of the United States and the world, and just a shout out to all the people in this war, leading this battle, leading this struggle. Think about the difficulty and the risk of being a healthcare provider, a first responder, someone who works in a grocery store and provides all the restocking and all the food that we need. There are a lot of heroes that we all know about and think about, and I hope a few lighthearted moments will have their place as well. That's it.
Absolutely. I will toast all of the above mentioned, and a big thanks to everyone for helping us and keeping us healthy and safe. So absolutely. And with that, I want to introduce the 2017 Cinsaut wine from Tallent Vineyards. If this is the bottle that you have and the glass in your glass, then you are joining us with the right wine. So I want to also introduce Rachel, our assistant winemaker, who has been working with us since 2013, and I absolutely could not do what we do without her. No exaggeration. Rachel is responsible for this wine. She took over making some of the wines from the Tallent Vineyard back in 2017. So, Rachel, why don't you introduce us to Cinsaut and give us a little update on working with the fruit from the Tallent Vineyards.
So Tallent Vineyard is located in Mason County. It's about hour and a half just west of us. And I cannot tell you enough how beautiful his fruit comes in all the time. He is just a genius of a farmer in all things that he grows, but his fruit is, if you get to drive by his vineyard, it's immaculate. It's beautiful. And I get a great source of pride of being able to be the one responsible for guiding his grapes into our fabulous wine. So Cinsaut, it's a Rhone varietal. One of the things that I love most about this wine is, and I realize I'm jumping forward a little bit, I just want to say what I love first, is that it is such a light-bodied red wine. I'm very much a seasonal wine drinker, and I love this light-bodied wine being available in the summer so that I'm not drinking big cabs because I get red, very red. This is, I think, a perfect Texas summertime red wine to drink.
Well, with that, I think we should encourage everybody to lift their glass and give this a little smell and a taste. And also, I want to mention Heidi Hirons joined us from Michigan just now on the feed. So far, she holds the record for the furthest away. So cheers, Heidi. I hope you're enjoying the wine. If you don't have it, give us an order. We'll get it up to you ASAP. So, Doc, can you give us a little history on Cinsaut, where it comes from, etc.?
Such an interesting thought, maybe to be an ancient grape from Hérault, from the south of France, from Montpellier, maybe actually imported from other places around the Mediterranean prior to that, sometime in the Middle Ages. The name is obscure, as is the spelling. No one knows exactly what Cinsaut means. I can't find it in the Oxford English Dictionary. The meaning is just listed as written off as obscure. I like that it's planted a lot in South Africa, where it was called Hermitage, and when it was crossed with Pinot Noir, the grape Pinotage emerged, and it's been a wonderful grape for that part of the world. It's grown a lot, primarily though in Languedoc. It's blended a lot with Grenache and or Carignan. But John, I don't think, or Rachel, I don't think you blended this.
No, this is actually, it's one of the very few times that we get to take a wine and we don't have to blend. We don't have any holes to fill. We don't have anything that, like, it's just a really, really good wine all by itself. It's
Yeah, that doesn't happen very often at all. But to have a single varietal from a single vineyard.
I know that in 2017 we had three unusual grapes from the Rhone Valley, Frambois, Carignan, and Cinsaut. Kept them all in barrel for 2 years. Is that correct, Rachel?
It is.
And I think we were just very impressed with the taste and the richness of each of those, as we decided to make separate varietal bottlings. And I love this wine. I think it's incredible. It's almost Pinot Noir like. And I'd like to know what you all think about that, John.
Well, I agree, and Rachel created some magic on this one for sure. We both talked about the fact that we don't really have Pinot Noir here in Texas, and there are a couple of varietals that we've looked at in kind of a like for like idea. This Cinsaut, I think, fits that palette fairly well. And before I get into that, I want to shout out to folks from New Orleans. They just asked about the label. Before we get more into the detail, I really do want to hit on this label. This is artwork from Tony Bell. It's one of the seascapes that we chose for this label. Well, I think, Doc, you can speak to Tony a little bit better than I.
Well, Tony and I were, I guess, really good friends from junior high school all the way through high school. And he was always an amazing artist. And he won the Fisher Auto Body Design Competition when he was 14. I got a letter from Yale. He was in Life magazine, a picture of this little kid. Yale sent a letter saying, we want you to come and study art and design here at Yale. You can come now. You can wait until you graduate from high school anytime. And Tony, of course, refused to go to Yale. But he went to the University of Texas, was a wonderful painter, watercolorist. His father spent his whole life in the oil and gas business. When Tony graduated from high school, he came home and his dad had bought 20 gallons of house paint and had Tony paint the house to celebrate his degree in painting from the University of Texas, which Tony did. Probably really.
That's awesome. Well. That's a great dad.
And, he married to a wonderful woman, Claire. Tony died before we ever made our first bottle of wine, and I remember asking Claire, how would you feel? How would Tony feel about having his artwork on a wine label? And she said he would smile, and he smiled a lot. So that would I'm sure that was true. All of his artwork was at a wonderful house they had in the country outside of Brady, and it was struck by lightning. They were all gone. Every piece of art that he ever produced, sculpture, all kinds of inventions that he made, all of his paintings, watercolors, everything was lost. And Claire had given us a collection of his paintings, maybe a couple hundred slides. And so that's where most of these labels have come from. A few originals survived that we have here, but and Brett found these wonderful watercolors for the three Provençal grapes that we've made in what we call our Maritime series. And I love this particular watercolor of a sailing ship. I think it's wonderful. So that's the story.
It really is.
Yeah.
It's going to be the only wine I serve at my tiki bar, just so you know.
That's not true.
No, that's true. I will also serve the Carignan.
I recommend it. Yeah.
Well, I think let's get back to the body of this wine, Rachel, on discussing, there have been several comments here, reminds one person of a Gamay. reminds another person of a Pinot, but only deeper. And you and I had a lot of fun with this. And I really, one of my best things that I get to do as a winemaker for Becker is the collaboration that Rachel and I participate in when it comes to making our wines and then blending them and the back and forth about what to do. It's a great creative process. It's not neat, clean, and clean cut. Rachel, unfortunately, has to deal with my 1,600 personalities. The only one that most people get to see is the intelligent one. So
when is that, John?
Yeah, exactly. It's about 7:30 in the morning when I'm making coffee. So Rachel, give us your impressions of this grape as it came in and what you thought specifically when we were blending.
Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this was the first year that we actually brought Cinsaut in. It's the first time that I remember bringing it in any quantity. Is that?
Yeah.
The 2016, we had a very small amount. We had like 3 tons.
Okay.
But this is the first year that we were able to make a single wine out of it.
So it's just the berries themselves coming in. It's a big, fat, juicy berry, which presents its own intrigue when you're getting ready to crush it.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So it's been a fun trial and error to learn exactly how to handle just the grapes and retrieve the juice. Tasting it, you can tell there's not a lot of tannins, but it's got great fruit. It's got substantial body without tannic structure. I personally love that dichotomy of, to me, the aromas that I get are more of a stewed fruit. It's got a lot of dark notes to it, but I love the acidity and the brightness on the finish of it.
Well, I apparently love this bottle very much. So, well, what I like about it, I like the herbal note on the nose. Very much love a glass of wine just to kind of sit and sniff it a little bit and drink it in between, of course. But I really like the aromatics. And this particular wine, I must say, actually chilled it down in the refrigerator and treated it a little bit like a rosé as far as serving it chilled, which is kind of fun. It is a lighter red-bodied wine. I don't know if this will do justice to the color here, but you can see this. If I can put a white background on it, we can maybe see the meniscus. It's very, very light on there. Doc, what are your impressions when you taste this wine?
Well, I think a Beaujolais is not the Nouveau Beaujolais, but the Grand Cru or
Gamay.
A Gamay Beaujolais, very much like this. A lot of people say that if you're going to learn to drink or learn about Pinot Noir, you begin there. And I think there's a lot of truth there. That's probably where the idea of crossing this with Pinot came from. And there's so many wonderful things that you could pair this with, wonderful cheeses and, roast duck and chicken. And I think it's just a wonderful wine. I think we were actually amazed and delighted by what we found in barrel when we were going around tasting. And I think we all thought maybe we ought to not blend this. That this could have been a great part of one of your own blends, both of you. But
well,
I love having it stand alone.
I do know, Rachel, that when we talked about the culture of wine before we started fermenting, I cannot remember, did we do a bacterial fermentation on this 48 hours before we introduced the yeast?
Yes, we did. That. I've lost it. I can't remember what it is, but it's
I can only say TD. I use the initials.
TD, yeah. That's all. Yeah, I'm like, I don't know what that stands for anymore. I do. It's in here. But we did it's a non-Saccharomyces pre-fermentation addition that really just kind of helps knock out some of the native yeast that comes in from the vineyard, maybe some of the undesirable things that it's. I like to control this, and this is part of my control situation. So we allow this TB to ferment, and it maybe produces no more than 2% alcohol, and then after that, the Saccharomyces takes over and continues its winemaking process. And then we did go through
It does,
and that was all in barrel.
yes, I was going to say it did go through malactic fermentation, so there's some really nice creamy notes on the edges right there. So everybody, go ahead and I mean, if you haven't yet, or if you're not enjoying this wine, you need to kind of ignore us a little bit and keep sipping this wine. It's absolutely fantastic.
I'm hoping that you're drinking it while we're talking.
Oh, I hope so too. And I'm looking over here. So, Doc, we need to talk about the 3 C's because this is the cornerstone of that program.
Right.
So, would you address that a little bit? This just came about, honestly, kind of short term. We weren't really planning on this until we went and tasted a few of these Rhone varietals.
Well, I think it's a great direction. I think it fits very well with our part of the world, especially the hill country. And I think Drew Tallent really grows these grapes well. I'll tell you one thing about Drew that I love, and that is that, or many things, but we discovered that both of our great grandfathers were in that area, the area of Camp Air and Brady prior to the Civil War. And my great great grandfather got married in 1859, and Drew's great great grandfather was also there. There weren't many people in that part of Texas at that time, and other than Comanches, and they must have known each other. And I'm sure they weren't thinking about or talking about vineyards and wine production,
Yeah.
Rhone varietals, and probably just are we gonna be able to eat something for the next week and have shelter over our heads and keep our horses healthy.
It's funny how everything's starting to come full circle. So, just out of curiosity, Doc, I know this is not anything related to the wine. This is more history. But I know Gillespie County voted to stay as part of the Union. Did Mason County vote Union or did they vote Confederacy? Do you know?
Yeah, gosh, I don't know, but I know that my great great grandfather was in John Bell Hood's army, and
Okay.
died in 1863. Somewhere in the Civil War. So, alas, fortunately, my great grandfather was in the works by then, and he and my grandfather, my mother, were all born in Brady. But
Right.
my great great grandfather never returned from John Bell Hood's army. Or Gettysburg.
Well, on a lighter note, Rachel. Okay, guys,
No
I have that. So we're going to hit real briefly the barrel program and the what we decided to do with it, or what more correctly Rachel decided to do with the barrel program. And then also to mention to y'all, now that you've tasted a sip or two, this is a 15.2% alcohol wine. And it does not taste hot. And I would like to address that because a lot of people talk about high or low alcohol. Yes, it is high alcohol wine if you look at it, 15.2% by volume. But in wine, if that particular wine is well balanced, the alcohol does not come forward. Neither do some of the faults or attributes. It comes together as a whole wine, as a whole food. So yes, it's higher in alcohol, but it is, to me, a fairly well-balanced wine. That's why we decided to put it in a bottle by itself.
Right.
I concur with this, absolutely. And I think that it's tasting it, you don't notice. It doesn't burn. You don't get a sense of ethanol in your mouth. Yep. So the barrel program, I like that Jon says it's what we choose to do when you're at the height of harvest. There's a lot of just get it done.
Don't give away all the secrets.
Right. That's a secret, right? That's not a secret.
Right. No, it's not.
So we did actually utilize probably about 30% French brand new barrels. It's one of the fun projects that Jon and I have worked on for the last several years of finding our right blend of new and neutral, American versus French, and setting up that program to highlight the wines the best that we can. And no doubt this one 100% benefits from a French oak, I think, personally. It just lends to that silky texture, that
Absolutely.
nuance of oak. It's not overbearing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. So what food would you guys pair with this? Rachel, you go first. What would you put with this?
I can't help but think of Thanksgiving when I drink this. All
Mm,
Thanksgiving foods,
Oh,
all of
yeah.
it.
You
Turkey,
bet.
cranberries.
Turkey.
all the good carbohydrates is what you're saying.
Yes.
I
Dinner
can
rolls.
tell you,
I'm on the keto plan. Dinner rolls sound lovely right now.
no, no dinner rolls for you.
I can tell you from practicing that it goes wonderfully with double and triple cream cheese,
Oh
especially
God.
Delicious Bourguignon. It's just, it's wonderful.
Well, I'd like you both to know that that brings a smile to my face. And yet proving again I'm my own favorite comedian.
Doc, I'd like to know where's my straw. I didn't get a straw.
We've lost our
Exactly.
straws. Our cowboy hat was at the spot, I can tell you that.
Right. So I have to say one of my favorite foods for this, and this is probably not going to make a lot of people happy. I love this with roasted Brussels sprouts.
Pardon?
I just think it goes very
I
well.
think that's right. A little balsamic vinegar and some bacon, cheese in there. I think that's a good call.
Yeah, blue cheese. Sprinkled with blue cheese right on the top and some toasted pecans.
You're making that for dinner, right?
Unfortunately, no, I think we're having sweet potatoes tonight. Okay, got a couple of questions here for you, Rachel and Doc. So Patrick Ramsey asks, what is the ideal temperature for this wine? And does the bottle shape have a meaning? Rachel?
I would say you probably want to serve this, I would say between 55 and 65 degrees, slightly chilled would be nice. The bottle shape. Yeah, actually, so this is, I'm going to try to hold this up and not it this way. So the bottle shape is a lovely burgundy style bottle. And while this would not, actually, I'm going to plead that I don't know if things from the Rhone Valley, they do normally go into this shape bottle, don't they?
Yeah.
That's typical and it's appropriate and correct. Yep.
Yep.
There you go.
It's
I do know.
not-
I did know this.
It's not a Bordeaux bottle. It could be from the Rhone. It could be from Burgundy. It could be from other places. But most importantly, not Bordeaux. Yeah.
Yeah, just more of a traditional style here. There's no hard or fast rule here in the U.S. to put the wine in any shape. We just kind of follow a little convention as far as that goes. Doc,
And John,
there's
these varietals are also made bottled by themselves by Bonnie Doon, Turley, Castle, Frick. You've tasted some of those, and
yes.
how does this compare with what you've tasted from California?
Well, I would have to tell you that of three of those, this one beats them hands down. Now the fourth one, this beats it hands down. So they're very good wine. Not to disparage any producer. All four of those are excellent wines. Cinsaut likes heat. It is heat tolerant. It's also drought tolerant. Oddly enough, that seems to happen here in Texas for some reason. This grape, though, really does come to a different level of expression here in Texas versus the West Coast, in my opinion. You can take that and 2 cents and still have 2 pennies after everything's said and done. But the idea here is that this wine has a lot of herbal and fruit notes that I don't necessarily get from the West Coast fruit. I also am convinced a couple of those wines that you mentioned also used a little bit of Petite Syrah in their blends. So of all of those, this one to me really expresses the fruit as it is. We just basically took those gems that Drew Tallent gave us, and Rachel did an excellent job in getting it to this point where everything was intact. So I have one more. I have a question for you, Doc, specifically, and this one comes from Andrea Eggert, and she asks, is there any difference between Cinsaut with the LT and Cinsaut without the L? It's just basically spelling.
Well, we submitted this label as CINSAULT, That was changed by the federal inspectors. They dropped the L. But
Yes, they did.
I think the etymology of the word Cinsaut, i.e. the definition, the history of the spelling, it was maybe Cinsaut, Cinq, Sao originally. So we've dropped the Q also. I don't really think I've got a real fix on with or without the L. It's had a lot of different spellings.
I don't know why they did that either. I really don't. I don't think there was any reason to. The third question I have here is, how long can I lay this wine down? This is from Ronald Dutch. He asks, how long can I lay this down? Difference in light and heavy-bodied wines.
My guess is
There is.
With this, I bet this will be fabulous in 10 years. I think it'll get very rich and thick and be fun to taste it 10 years from now.
I think you're right. I think, to mention back to Rachel, as you talked about earlier, with this wine not having a lot of tannins, and it doesn't, this is going to be an exception to the rule. This wine without a heavy amount of tannins will still age well. To me, I look for the tannin structure in a wine to figure out if I think it's going to lay down for a long time or not. This, again, exception to that rule. I think that this wine will age very well. I think it will lose some of the fruit over the next 5 to 8 years, but I think it'll maintain a lot of this beautiful body and the more subtle notes, those herb notes. Okay, one final question that we have here before we wrap things up, and we will, if we don't get to your questions now, folks, keep giving them. We're going to do a Q&A afterwards. We will answer your questions and post that up shortly after. But the last question that I have here is simply, why did you choose this wine to put into a bottle? And I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name before it scrolled across. So, Rachel, why did we choose this wine?
We like it. And we hope you do too. We think you will. We really just thought it just came across really wonderfully. I'm sure if you're following the Texas wine industry that you know that we recently, over the last several years, realized that Rhone varietals are doing really, really well. And this is another, what do you say, a piece of magic in our bucket.
You know,
yeah,
I would add to that.
Doc, what do you think? Why did we choose this? Why did you choose this wine?
You know, we make an effort to go around and taste the various wines that are in when you all don't hide them from him, I'm allowed to find them. But we taste them, and we were tasting these barrels, and I think the response was, "My goodness, this is wonderful." And then John said, "No, I'm planning to blend this," you know, and but it just got better and better and better. And I think really just it cast its own vote just by being so wonderful. I love it.
I think so too, and I would also like to address finally the fact that it's a Rhone varietal, and I truly believe, especially here in the Hill Country, Rhone varietals do so well, and it's always fun to have a new and interesting thing to discover. And if you're not familiar with this grape, don't let it intimidate you. Very few people are familiar with it on its own. The other thing I would say is grab a glass of wine and try it and drink it, and you figure it out whether you like it or not. And that's the important part. You decide whether you like it or not. No matter what we say, ultimately it's going to be whether you enjoy it or not. My only caveat to that is, if you find a new varietal and you don't care for it, try it from a couple other producers and see if it's the varietal you don't care for or the way it was made. I think that's my only rule of thumb I can give to people on that.
Or even the area in which it's grown.
Yes,
I feel
absolutely.
like we've shown that this grows really, really well here.
You betcha.
Absolutely. Well, in wrapping this up, I would like to thank everyone who joined us tonight for the broadcast. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for lifting a glass of wine. Please keep those first responders and everybody on the front lines in your prayers. And here's to everyone. May you enjoy a great glass of wine and even better health. Cheers.
Cheers, friends.
Cheers.